For those Christians who want to engage with Hebrew Israelites, the next item I'm going to discuss is the idea of strangers who dwelt with Israel. Hebrew Israelites will often suggest that these are simply Israelites who were born outside of the land of Israel. That doesn't work, and I want you to be prepared for how to address this. There's two key texts that come to mind where we want to address this. One is at Exodus chapter 12, verse 48. The other is Numbers chapter 15, verses 13 through 15. So let's look at these texts and let's see the objections and how we can go about answering them. Beginning in Numbers chapter 15, verses 1 and 2, we see, "Now the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, 'Speak to the sons of Israel and say to them.'" So the key here is that the sons of Israel are being addressed. Well, what is the command and what is the relevance to non-Israelites? The key is in verses 14 through 16. "If an alien sojourns with you, or one who may be among you throughout your generations, and he wishes to make an offering by fire as a soothing aroma to the Lord, just as you do, so he shall do. As for the assembly, there shall be one statute for you and for the alien who sojourns with you, a perpetual statute throughout your generations. As you are, so shall the alien be before the Lord. There is to be one law and one ordinance for you and for the alien who sojourns with you." Now, in case there's any question, the term alien here is translated from the Hebrew ger. Now, the likely response is going to be that Israelites are also called ger. And so these are just talking about Israelites who are born outside of the land of Israel, and they come to dwell in the land of Israel. But as we're going to see, that is not only highly improbable, it is essentially impossible from other places that we find these same terms. Now, I want to notice another term that immediately preceded in verse 13. It says, "All who are native shall do these things in this manner, in presenting an offering by fire as a soothing aroma to the Lord." So notice the native, these are Ezrach. So now let's go look at another text directly relevant and related where Ezrach is contrast with ger. We begin in verse 10. "Now the son of an Israelite woman, whose father was an Egyptian, went out among the sons of Israel." And notice in verse 11, "The son of the Israelite woman blasphemed the name and cursed." So they had to figure out here what to do with this person. What should be the penalty? Now notice then, when we get to verse 16, "Moreover, the one who blasphemes the name of the Lord shall surely be put to death. All the congregation shall surely stone him. The alien, as well as the native, when he blasphemes the name, shall be put to death." Well, what is the language here? Alien is ger, native is Ezrach. So here is this exact same contrast in verse 22. "There shall be one standard for you. It shall be for the stranger as well as the native, for I am the Lord your God." Then Moses spoke to the sons of Israel. They brought the one who had cursed outside the camp and stoned him with stones. Thus the sons of Israel did, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. So the son of the Israelite woman, whose father was Egyptian, and thus he was not an Israelite through his father, this one was understood as the ger versus the native, and he was stoned. They did as the Lord commanded, which could not possibly mean there that alien means somebody born outside of the land of Israel and yet who is an Israelite. So that here rules out the meaning. Now, the Hebrew Israelites will likely go to the next chapter in Leviticus, chapter 25, and try to make an argument from the King James Version. And we're going to notice 2 points on this argument. Leviticus 25:35, King James Version, if thy brother be waxen poor and fallen in decay with thee, then thou shalt relieve him. Yea, though he be a stranger or a sojourner, then he may live with thee. King James Version translates the Hebrew in such a way that it takes it in a very literal way and calls the brother, that is another Israelite, a stranger or a sojourner. However, most other translations don't render it this way. They render it something more like the NASB. Notice what it says. Now, in case a countryman of yours becomes poor, and his means with regards to you falter, then you are to sustain him like a stranger or a sojourner, that he may live with you. Now, there are 2 things in support of this translation. First is the Septuagint. The Septuagint actually says like with the term hosts. Second, let's see what the scholars actually say on this. We're going to read from a handbook on the book of Leviticus that deals specifically with translation in the Hebrew. As, following the Hebrew text literally, some versions omit the word and understand even though he is a stranger, compare the King James Version, but the interpretation as is accepted by almost all modern versions and is a legitimate reading of the text. The meaning to be translated is therefore, you must help him as you would a resident alien or a passing guest. Of course, this rule loses much of its force in a culture where foreigners and hired persons are not treated properly. In such cases, it may be necessary to reinforce the meaning of the biblical message by saying something like, you must treat him well as you are supposed to do for aliens, or you must take adequate care of his needs as Jews do for foreigners. Even if you want to dismiss the translation elements and the fact that the ancient Jews who translated the Septuagint include as, the fact remains that the reason we know this is about Israelites is because it expressly says brothers or countrymen. And so it's explicit. Yet in the very previous chapter, it was explicit that it was one who was not an Israelite and could not be an Israelite. So we know the proper sense because there the sense contrasted the native with the stranger or alien. Now let's look at Exodus 12:48. But if a stranger sojourns with you and celebrates the Passover of the Lord, let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come near to celebrate it, and he shall be like a native of the land. Here again, the term for stranger is ger. Does this refer to an Israelite born in a foreign place? No, it does not. How do we know? Let's look where this other concept of being as a native is articulated. Leviticus 19:33 and 34. When a stranger resides with you in your land, you shall not do him wrong. The stranger who resides with you shall be to you as the native among you, and you shall love him as yourself. For you were aliens in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. When it says they were aliens in the land of Egypt, does that mean they were Egyptians who were born in another country and then moved into Egypt? No. It means that they were actually foreigners to the Egyptian. They were a different people. In the same way, those who are aliens to the Israelites are a different people. And yet in both cases, in Exodus 12 and here, they were to be treated as though they were Israelites. So there is no confusion. The Bible is clear. God views all who serve him the same.